So we're continuing to remove everything to get this engine out. And what Mariah has done is she sprayed the exhaust header there, trying to get the glare out. And so she's gonna take down these bolts that are holding up the exhaust. That way we can get that out of the way and we won't have any issues with that interfering with us removing this motor. So, all right. And she likes to do everything by hand, so, but that's fine. We'll check back with her in a little bit. Okay, so she's decided to use an air impact, which is a lot faster. But as you can notice too, I've also put a ratcheting strap going across here. The reason I did that is for the exhaust. I don't want the exhaust to fall down and drag on the ground, especially after we get the engine out. So this way it'll hold up the exhaust and keep it secured from dragging on the ground. So it looks like she's gotten all the bolts loose. And that just verifies it's loose. And that'll separate a little more as we pull the motor out. So now we're going to remove the transmission linkage, which it has just a cotter pin in there. So we'll remove that cotter pin outwards and we'll slide that shifter lever up and we'll be able to get it out. This way that's disconnected as well. And the one last thing for the transmission, it has this speedometer cable right here. They also call it a TV cable. We're gonna unscrew that and simply you can grab that with some pliers and loosen that as well. It's kind of like a bottle cap. All right, so we're gonna get those removed. Okay, so right now Mariah is trying to remove that TV cable. And like I said, it's kind of like a bottle cap. So she's just using some pliers to grip it and help loosen it up that way. And she's already removed the cotter pin for the shifter linkage. So simply all we're going to do now is just slide it on out. Like so. Actually, I'm going to keep it above the oh, there it goes. I want to be careful when I go to remove this from the transmission out that I don't bend this rod. So we'll leave it hanging like so. And because we're going to remove the transmission at the same time with the motor, we don't have to worry about disconnecting the torque converter or flywheel or any of that stuff. And it looks like everything else that's connected to the transmission is going to come out with us. So that's fine on this side. And we may have to do something about our starter wires. So our next step is we want to make some clearance so when we pull this motor and transmission out, we don't want to damage anything. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and remove the radiator. But before we remove the radiator, we have to remove the fan shroud. So we're going to take these bolts off that are holding down the fan shroud off the top and all the way across. And then we're also down here, you got a couple of screws that are normally down here holding this together. And it's like a clamshell, so it'll separate the top layer. After we do that, we're also gonna get some pliers and squeeze this hose clamp together and wiggle that hose off. And on the opposite end, the big radiator hose, the upper, we're gonna get a flathead screwdriver and loosen that hose clamp and remove it also. Also too, when we're taking all this apart, we're gonna, down here are some transmission lines that we're gonna use line wrenches for and remove those also in the process. So hopefully we can get all that out, and we're probably going to find once we take this bracket loose or this shroud, either there's some brackets underneath or the shroud itself is holding the radiator. So once we take that off, the radiator should have a lot of play as if it's loose and move around. Somehow we're going to get down there to the bottom and there's another transmission line just like that one, a little bit lower, and we'll have to take that off. And also the lower radiator hose is something we need to take off too. So anyways, we're going to get that taken off and removed and see where we're at after that. Okay, so we removed the upper part of the fan shroud, so it's out of the way. And as you can see, our fan is going to be one of the issues that we're going to worry about, because we don't want, when we pull out this engine, to fall forward and want to hit our radiator. So that's the main purpose, that we want to pull this out and get the radiator out of the way. Another thing too, just to be on the safe side, we're probably going to also remove the fan, but we'll show that as we get there to get that out of the way. Right now on the other side, Mike is trying to remove the AC line, and he's using a line wrench to do so. So he's going to grab that fitting on it, slide it back down towards the engine. There you go, right there. And on this particular one, because they're aluminum lines, hold on, Mike, you need to get a wrench on the other side. So find just a regular wrench. So what I'm telling Mike is, when he's removing this, he's holding it with a line wrench, which is exactly what we want. But that side, we need to hold that as well. And then we'll work them across from each other away so we can loosen it. So bring the silver one towards me. Hold the other one still. There you go. So these can be really tight, especially when they haven't been taken off in forever. So sometimes you're gonna have to put a little extra force in it. But we're gonna remove these lines to get them out of the way and work on getting the radiator out of the way. Now we're on the other side of the radiator, and what we're working on now is removing the transmission lines. These lines go all the way to the radiator from the transmission, and the purpose of them is to help cool off the transmission. So it brings the fluid up to the radiator, and as you're driving down the road, the fins from the radiator, the transmission fluid is flowing through there, and with the wind from the road, it's helped cooling it off. This way your transmission doesn't overheat. Another system that's used for this, sometimes some vehicles are equipped with the transmission coolers. And so what happens is they put like a smaller radiator in the front side. It kind of looks like a tiny radiator just for the transmission itself. Another thing they make like that is for the power steering. They also make a power steering cooler. So it's coming, some of the newer style engines, they have these kind of things, and especially vehicles that do a lot of towing. So like pickups, they have this set up as well. So it looks like he's got that loose. He's gonna remove that one, and then he's gonna have to get down to the one down there at the bottom. We can make that out. There's another one lower down there, and there's also a radiator hose. So we're gonna let Mike remove those, and we'll be back. Okay, so we already removed the fan shroud. Now you can see a lot of gap there. And we went ahead and removed the fan, which was those 4 bolts there. After I removed the fan, I went ahead and put the bolts back in place so I don't have to keep up with them. So we're just double checking and seeing what's still connected to the body and the engine, and separating the two. Right now, Mike is over there disconnecting the battery so we can get those cables and let that come out with the engine. And it looks like we're getting pretty close. Once we take these off, we're gonna remove this AC line that's connected to our compressor, and which is this one right here. So for the easiest way to do that, we're probably gonna take that bolt off on the back side of this manifold, and then after we're done, just lay it over the engine out of the way. So we're gonna take those off and see how close we're getting after that.
Can I break this apart? Or do
you don't need to break it apart, keep it together.
Okay.
That can stay there. Hold on. Now just put the bolt back in the bracket.
Right
no, on the bracket. Right here. Okay, so Mike has removed the AC line from the back of the compressor. And this is what it looks like. And the bolt came in through the back side, right down there to the back of the compressor. And so we're removing this, and he removed another bolt that held on the bracket. So we're just gonna fold this and move it out of the way. You gotta be careful when you're messing with these AC lines, especially the aluminum part section of it. They tend to bend pretty easy. So you gotta be careful not to kink those and let those bend. So next, Mike, what I need you to do, we need to remove these heater core hoses right here.
Yes.
So I would take it off here, loosen that clamp, and then there's another clamp right here I want you to loosen as well.
I see.
All right, so what those 2 hoses are, that goes to the heater core that goes underneath the dash. If you ever see a water leak on your floorboard, that has went bad on you. So this is what runs your heat when you turn on your heater. If that fails, you no longer have a heater. So we're just gonna remove those hoses for now to get them out of the way. Catch up here.
Okay.
Okay guys, so what we're looking at here, we're looking at this wire harness which went to the alternator. And if you're looking at it closely, you can see how it's barely held on by a strand of the wire. So before we go back with this reinstallation, we're gonna have to do a wire repair. and repair this connector here, because if not, we're gonna have a charging issue later on down the road. Another thing we're trying to do, we're gonna remove this whole harness, and we're gonna try to get these out of the way. So right now, all we're doing is following this wire harness to make sure everything comes disconnected, move it out of the way so we can have a clear path of removal. All right, so we're gonna keep going around looking for harnesses and hoses and vacuum lines that we need to take off, and we'll be right back. Put that bolt back in. Just the bolt. That way we know where it goes. All right, guys. So now we're on the underside, and what we're working on is trying to get the motor mount bolts out. There's one there, and we're trying to get to the back side to loosen it as well. So we're gonna get some wrenches on each one of those and loosen those, and then we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. Once we get those out, that's all holding the motor in right now and the transmission, other than the transmission support here on the back side. We'll just take that one bolt out, and I might even remove this cross member right here that runs along here, just so my transmission will fall down and give me some room to remove it. Another thing too, I had Felipe do, he removed this, there was a line right here that he had to remove the bolt for. And what it was for the speedometer. So he removed that cable. And here's another example of a speedometer cable right there. So, and I'll show you the inside. It's got like a little needle in there that turns. So when your speedometer tells you how fast you're going, that cable goes into your transmission, and it spins. And as it spins, it makes the speedometer raise. So that's how that works also. All right, so we're gonna find some nuts and bolts. That's it. We just need to hold it on this side. I'm holding it if it's twisting it. It seems like it's pretty loose. So we've got a surprise guest here, Carlos Gutierrez. We couldn't get him to show up to school when he was here, supposed to be here, but now that he's not supposed to be here, he shows up, so he's a little backwards, but we still welcome him.
Still run for principal.
All right, guys, we're gonna take these bolts out. We'll be back. Okay, came into a little snag here. What I'm noticing is, get this out of the way, give you a view. This is the motor mount bolt right here, and I need to remove it, but it's about 3 to 4 inches long, and it'll hit this base of this fuel pump. So the only way I'm gonna be able to remove that is if I remove the fuel pump itself. The fuel pump is held on by 2 bolts. If you see one right there, and there's one on the other side. And I got the fuel line that's connected to it. Sorry guys, I know I'm being shaky here. So this fuel line here, I need to disconnect it. I'm gonna use my line wrench. It's a 5/8, so line wrench will just slip through the line, just like so. See that little cutout there? It'll slip through, slip over that bolt, and then I can get to it. The reason we use this, we don't wanna strip the head of this fitting, because if we do, then we gotta remake a whole line. It's not nothing simple like you just get a new bolt or nut. So we don't wanna strip that out. And nor do I wanna be taking these off and on with some vice grips. So got that out of the way. And now I'm just gonna take the other 2 bolts out. I'm gonna work those loose, and this way I can get that bolt out.